Hey, welcome back to Black Lab Garage. I get asked a lot, do I like anything besides these old Ford trucks and Ford engines? Is there any other kind of engine that I like? Well, y'all know I don't like LS engines or Chevrolet engines. But actually, there is another engine that I like. And y'all want to try to guess what it is while the introduction's playing? You ready? Come on, let's get into it. And be guessing. All right, what'd you guess? If you guessed Dodge, you guessed wrong. Although I will say, like, from 1968 to 1970, Dodge made some good cars, and they made some fast cars. Some good-looking cars. But before then, oh God, no, they were ugly. Ugly, get behind one of them, it look like it's looking back at you when you get behind one of them. No. And from 72 on, they went ugly again. So, no. And I did own a Dodge once. I tell everybody I own two. My first one and my last one. So, if you guessed Dodge, you guessed wrong. I mean, I have Ford engines sitting around. That's a Roller 351 Windsor right there. That is an old model 351 Windsor right there. Has the good heads on it. But those are Ford engines. What is the engine I like that is not a Ford? I'll give you a quick clue. Did you figure it out? Alright. I'm going to show you what it is right now. You ready? Yes, this is my hand. I'm just covering up the engine. On the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who would have guessed Pontiac? I do like Pontiac engines, believe it or not. So I'm not an anti-GM person, just an anti-Chevrolet person. I love my Pontiacs, which we're going to have to come in here one day. I was counting the other day. I thought, man, I need to crank this car because I haven't cranked this engine up in like 2 years now. And then I got studying. No, I bought this in 2020. I haven't cranked this engine in 5 years. So we need to come out here and crank this thing up one day. And if you're wondering what it is, well, it's a Trans Am. 78 Trans Am, actually. You see, I'm totally, which it sat here and got a lot of dust and stuff on it. But redone all suspension, brakes, ball joints, everything's being redone on it. This was something I started long before I ever had a YouTube channel. But you will be seeing this. Now, what are we going to do with that car? Well, number one, that is a gold special edition Y88 Trans Am. They only made those they were only available for 4 months, I believe. But we're going to paint it black, so don't tell that to the purists, because I ain't driving no gold car. Ain't happening. But after it's done, what we're going to do? We're going to drive it to Georgia. And we're going to visit some of the places that Smoking the Bandit was filmed. Of course, I've got a lot of work to do on them. Still got to do the interior. Got to finish up the suspension. The motor in it runs great, but guess what? We're going to change the motor too. Why? Because there's absolutely nothing wrong with that engine. Nothing. Not one thing. That's a perfectly good 400 that's in that car. But we're going to change it. So let me tell you a little story. I wanted a 455 to go in that car just because 455s are torque monsters. Those cars are big and heavy. They need a motor with a lot of torque. I mean, 400s make a lot of torque. Of course, at a higher RPM. 455s they're just torque monsters. Well, I couldn't find a 455. And those of you that know, Pontiac only made a 455 from 1970 to 1976. That was it. The 400 had a much longer run. They built them from 1968, and the actual last ones were built in 78, but they kept enough to put in the 79 model Trans Ams, and that was only in 4-speed cars. But, so 455 is a little harder to find. I couldn't find one. Well, Eagle makes a stroker kit for 400, so fine. I'll put a stroker kit in a 400. I did find another 400 in a 79 Trans Am. Because anybody don't know, all Pontiac V8s are except for the 301 that don't count, are the same physical size. 326, 350, 389, 400, 421, 428, 455, they're all the same physical size. So anyway, I bought that 400 because I was going to use that engine to drive the car around while I built the stroker engine. We pulled the 400 out, and looky, she be a 455. Somebody had put this engine in that car. So needless to say, I was all excited. I mean, I was tickled to death. I found a 455 when I thought it was a 400. Of course, the guy sold to me thought it was a 400 too, till we got it pulled out. But anyway, there's only one problem. As you can see, this cylinder had exited stage left. Yeah, I mean, it could be sleeved, but this isn't the only one that would have to be sleeved, I don't think. That's why I just stopped on it. I mean, there'd have to be several, which there's nothing wrong with the sleeves. Sleeves are fine, but you just run into a lot of money when you start sleeving multiple cylinders. So then I was back to doing a 400 stroker, since, you know, that block had turned to Swiss cheese. So going to do a stroker, 400 stroker again. Well, I had a friend of mine at work. Well, actually, we were friends before we ever worked together, but he said, hey, I've got a trailer load of engine. I think there's a Pontiac engine on it. And he was right. There was a Pontiac engine on it. And she be a 455. I haven't torn it down, don't know anything about it. But I can tell you the block is 485, 425, which is the block casting for a 71 455 HO. Now, it doesn't mean it's a 455 HO. No, that's just the block casting, and they use that same block casting 71 to 74. There's a chance that it could have 4-bolt mains. I mean, we'll just have to tear it down, see, and make sure that there's no holes in the heads or in the block or anything. So are you surprised that my second most favorite engine behind Ford is Pontiac's? Some of you may not be surprised, but I'm sure some of you are surprised. I don't know, they were Pontiac engines were ahead of their time, really. I mean, you tell me another engine that comes from the factory with, number one, an air gap manifold, you know, because the manifold doesn't sit down on the engine like everybody else's. They had engines that had screw-in studs, guide plates, windage trays, slip-on harmonic balancers, and, you know, they were nothing like a Chevrolet engine. Which, I mean, and I'm not being mean here, I'm just being honest. All the GMs, I don't care if it's Buick, Olds, Pontiac, most of the time their engines, unless you got like a special edition Chevrolet, most of the time their engines in the late 60s were faster than the Chevrolets. You know, I mean, really, all those were above Chevrolet, unless you got a special edition, you know, or something like that. So, but I love me some Pontiacs. So, for everybody that guessed and guessed right, thumbs up. Hell, for those of you who participated and just guessed it all, I'll still give you a thumbs up. So, appreciate y'all watching, and hit the thumbs up. I give you one, now give me one back. But hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Me and the pups will be back with another one. And listen to more Goose Creek. See you.